All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Trost, and I'm sitting in for our chair, Matt Jones, who's been called away on his other job. And first, we'll call the roll here tonight. And Ted? Roger? Jeff?
Present.
Sandra?
Present.
Sandra?
Justin?
Present.
Kate? And Josh?
Present.
All right, I believe we do have a quorum.
Correct.
The first item on our agenda for the evening is the minutes from the 4th of October meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? Does anyone have any comments, suggestions, or a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Moved by Roger, seconded by Josh. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the October 4th meeting?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Minutes are approved. Public comment. We have, pardon? I would like to note for the meeting that Ted has joined us and should be marked as present. And at this point, I would ask Alice if we have received any public comments.
Yes, there was an email from Mr. Peter Bracci, which I forwarded to the commission via email, and it should also be in your packets. I printed off some color copies of the the presentation thing that he provided. And it's on the table for you to review if you need to, if you weren't able to do it prior to the meeting. And I attached the email from him. It should be the second page in your packets.
I believe this is essentially a revisiting of a presentation that this gentleman made to us last year. I don't know that there's much substantive that has changed. I believe in his email, he requests that we consider a letter to the city of Vancouver requesting that they undertake some actions to address this issue. And in that he's not here to make this comment, and he's limited to 3 minutes anyway, is there any comment from the commission on this material?
Excuse me, I'm sorry I was late this evening. I had a comment. The city passed the ordinance last year prohibiting camping in the Burnbridge Creek region, and I just wondered if that ordinance is being enforced or what's happening with it at this point in time. I'd be reluctant to send a letter to the city until I understand what the city has been doing to mitigate this problem, given that they have enacted an ordinance that prohibits camping in the Burnbridge Creek Greenway area.
You know, is that a permanent ordinance, or is it the temporary one I heard regarding fire hazard in the summer?
Well, it was based on the fact that there were fire hazard concerns, but to me, I thought it was a permanent ban.
I don't remember.
On camping. I guess that would be a question to be posed to the city, but
I would like to know after that action by the city, whether these photographs are current or whether they are from his files. And I didn't look too thoroughly in there, but they are demonstrative of a true problem on Burbridge Creek, but I don't know when these things were taken and whether the city has taken some kind of action on this stuff already.
It looks like it was a permanent amendment. Based on what I'm reading.
Is there any interest on the part of the commission to pursue this further?
I recognize at least some of the photographs from previous, but that doesn't mean that none of them are new. It just, I recognize at least a few of them. Some of them are quite memorable. He mentions in here SEPA, the State Environmental Policy Act, and a lack of SEPA study when based on camping laws. So I'm wondering if, I guess a couple things. One, it looks like they were updated to exclude Ridge Creek area camping permanently. So then the question there is enforcement, and then if there's a SEPA issue, you know, it makes me wonder if anyone's going to file suit, or what. This is my last commission meeting, so I'm not going to suggest a particular course, binding other people who will still be here to a particular course of action. It's certainly a challenging issue.
It is that, and I have some sympathy for this gentleman's point of view and concerns, certainly, and I guess anytime someone shows a vested interest in the environmental quality in Clark County, it's a good thing, and we should take those kind of comments seriously. It seems to me, however, there are a great many unknowns in a course of action, and probably a letter seems premature, not knowing all the details here. So I guess I would put it to the commission, if there's enough interest, to form a subcommittee to look into this issue further, or whether we'll just basically let this run its course with the city of Vancouver.
If I were sticking around, I'd be interested in it for what it's worth. But,
These things are extraordinarily emotional. Yeah, and this kind of presentation is going to take the normal group of bureaucrats to sit down and look at such things, and they're going to push away from it. But it is a true problem if this kind of stuff exists. And I would think there is a group within the city of Vancouver and or the county that has a vested interest in this and can wrap this up. And I don't think this body has any business getting into it at this point in time. This is emotion charged stuff.
Sandra raised her hand.
Pardon me?
Sandra would like to speak.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
Sorry, Sandra would like to speak.
Oh,
She raised her
certainly.
hand.
Sandra?
Yeah, I agree with many of the comments that have been made from both perspectives, right? It is a complicated issue, a challenge certainly that the city of Vancouver has attempted and continues to work on making progress. But, and I think Roger, I apologize, I don't know if it was Roger or Bob, had mentioned that this is a very charged and challenging issue with many complexities. If I would agree that potentially it's not a space that we necessarily, from my perspective, would want to go. However, if the commission agrees that we should, I would like to see a balanced approach from the perspective of acknowledging the complexity of the issue, the challenge of it, and then just considering an approach that's more, you know, we have to continue to speak for the environment and make sure that we are remembering the impact that has, but also recognizing the hard work that's being done to try to fix the issue. And so on one hand, I feel like if we're going to say something, we have to take a very balanced approach because it is a very complex issue with many sides to it. And I don't know that that's necessarily a place where perhaps we want to go.
Yeah, I would just say this. If the Clean Water Division or the Public Works Division or all this had a cop that was the guy who goes out and checks that whether, you know, you got a problem out here, I'd send that cop out there and find out, get our pictures and find out just the extent of this. And that report then could come to this table or whatever table was appropriate. But this coming to us, there's an awful lot that was missing between those two perspectives.
I guess some additional information is I have seen Mr. Bracci's presentation a few times before. This is my first time seeing it here at the Clean Water Commission, but I was a former commissioner on the Vancouver Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, and then also met Mr. Bracci when I was working at Department of Ecology with the City of Vancouver. So my understanding is most of the area that is of concern is on City of Vancouver owned property, their Greenway, which is also a utility. There's stormwater drainage, there's sewer, there's some power lines that are Bonneville Environmental Fund, or Bonneville Found, I keep getting the foundation, they're Bonneville Power Administrations. Any enforcement on the Greenway would be of the responsibility of Vancouver's source control team. However, what I'm aware of is that the City of Vancouver has partnered with the HART, the Homeless Action Response Team, which is a group that goes out and works directly with the houseless communication. And then there's a partnership established with SHARE of Vancouver, which is another resource center where they're actually beginning to employ the houseless community to go out and clean up litter. That doesn't necessarily resolve the issues with camping on public property. I do know Clark County has been talking about ordinances related to camping on county property. So if the commission were to become interested in houseless and the impacts of camping, I would encourage us to stay focused on Clark County's properties and seek partnerships with Vancouver to look at solutions together. But I don't know if it would be appropriate to ask our enforcement staff to go out and enforce on the property that we don't have jurisdiction on. But that doesn't mean we won't have problems like this at some point on rivers, especially as we restore them. So I think it is important for us to be thinking about, as our county continues to urbanize, it is a source of pollution.
So that litter group is called Talking Trash.
Talking Trash,
Yeah.
yes.
Would it maybe be appropriate to just contact the city and say, hey, this came to our attention, could you please comment?
Yeah, or pass
And let them fill us in on,
what's happening.
because I think from the letter, he's already reached out to the city, and he's not happy with the response that he's gotten.
Yeah, I would agree with that approach, that we just forward this on, saying this was presented to the Clean Water Commission, and that we're forwarding this on for your information. Don't necessarily think we can dictate to the city what they can or can't do, but I do note that the date on this is June 1, 2022, which was before the new ordinance was enacted by the city last summer. So to me, it's an informational item primarily, not something that we necessarily have.
I think that date is close to when he came here a previous time and presented.
Okay.
So he probably just hasn't updated that. But I've been bicycled on Burbridge Creek a fair amount in the summer, and some of these pictures I've seen firsthand with my own eyes. Not everyone. Doyle's new, which I think was his main concern in this packet of information.
What I've heard here is two potential ways to deal with this. The first would be that we actually do write a letter and forward this to the city for their information and comment should they choose to do so. And the second is that we simply table this and perhaps take it up as a potential action item for our work plan, which will be worked on at our first meeting in the new year, as to whether or not this would raise high enough in the priority scale to be something that we want the commission to get involved with over the course of the next year. And those would seem to be the two courses of action. Do I have a motion to forward this stuff to the city of Vancouver? Hearing none, we will opt for the second. We will take this as an information item and we will hold it in the parking lot, so to speak, of potential actions that the commission may choose to involve itself with in the coming year. I think with that, are there any other further public comments that we need to deal with?
No, that was the only public comment.
All right. Clean Water Division updates, the manager's update.
All right, thank you all for having me back. Been here for 4 months, and I am still figuring things out. And what I found is that the Clean Water team does a lot of work. It's a very efficient, very busy team, but they are helping me get up to speed, and I've really enjoyed having a chance to meet all of you and meet more of our partners and interact with more county staff. I do want to acknowledge that I know it's 3 of you, Josh, Roger, and Justin's last meeting. I know we have some time on the agenda later for your comments and reflections, but I just wanted to say thank you. And I hope that you still come and still participate and stay in touch. I don't think your interest in clean water will end, and I would encourage you, if you want to come participate and hang out with us and join our meetings, to still come and join us. A few things that we've been busy. A few things just to summarize that we've been really focusing on are the stormwater rate study, which I can provide a more comprehensive update on, as well as preparing a scope of work for the Vancouver Lake Management Plan Phase 2, which Ted, we just had a meeting last week. Time flies, to talk a bit more about that. I have some updates as well on, I'll save my remarks on the Lacamas Watershed Symposium for later in the agenda, so Roger and the work group can talk about that. But I do have some updates on the Camas interlocal agreement and just starting to think about what comes next and helping support our team continue to do what they do with the limited capacity. We just recently requested 2 additional staff, and unfortunately, no new positions were permitted in the county, so that means we still have at least another year ahead of us with limited capacity. So we're still looking for opportunities to bring more people onto our team to help us complete all the regulatory work that we have to do. Alice is going to provide some updates on what we've been doing in regards to Clean Water Commission recruitment, so I'll hold those remarks. But starting with the Camas interlocal agreement, since the Lacamas Watershed Symposium, we have had 3 meetings with the city of Camas to begin the process to start an interlocal agreement for implementation in Lacamas. One of those meetings was just with Camas, and then today we also met with Congresswoman Perez's office as well to talk about funding opportunities for long-term work. I'm excited about it. Fingers crossed. Our goal is to have an internal staff-to-staff interlocal draft for us to discuss next Thursday. But that would, in that discussion is myself, my supervisor, our deputy public works director, and then Steve Wall from Camas. And our hope is that we can bring in a draft interlocal agreement with cost estimates to the council for consideration at the end of January. We don't expect that they'll adopt it. We expect that there'll be some discussion and input and some continued negotiation. But we are on the right track, and my understanding is that Camas would like to begin some sort of implementation in late spring or early summer, moving forward with lake treatment. So our goal would be to have that ILA in place before lake treatment. So what we're hearing from our county council is a desire to have shared decision-making, shared weight in the decision-making for what happens in Lacamas going forward. So we're figuring out what that looks like from a financial perspective, and how we'll charter the decision-making into the future. Vancouver Lake Management Plan Phase 2. So some of you may be aware that Friends of Vancouver Lake was successful in getting a direct appropriation from Washington State Legislature for $330,000 to implement Phase 2 Vancouver Lake Management Plan. We had a meeting with Senator Patty Murray's office and the Army Corps of Engineers that Ted was instrumental in setting up with Friends of Vancouver Lake. That gave us some really helpful information about what we would need to do to modify a project that was constructed by the Corps. Staff has been working on the statement of work, and then we met with Friends of Vancouver Lake to get their input, and I appreciate that you all sent that. I received that from Bob, I think, yesterday. And at this time, next steps are to incorporate that feedback, and then our goal is to have a final agreement with Ecology in place by January, and then we'll put out an RFP to hire our professional services. We have until July of 2025 to spend the money in Vancouver Lake, but the things that we're focusing on are doing additional public involvement with the technical advisory group. We were talking about, do we want to host a Vancouver Lake Symposium? Additionally, one of the recommendations was to do some scoping and permitting feasibility and conceptual design around enhancements to the flushing channel to help restore the hydrologic connectivity between the Columbia River and Vancouver Lake. And then we're also recommending continuing to identify stormwater retrofit opportunities to make sure that all of our stormwater facilities have phosphorus removal cartridges installed in them, which there are some areas draining to Vancouver Lake that don't have any stormwater treatment at all that need to be prioritized for retrofit. Should I pause? Would you guys like to ask questions, or I have a few more items, but do you have any questions on the lake stuff?
If I could anyway, at some stage, I would greatly appreciate someone from your staff coming in and giving us a rundown on the efficacy of the phosphorus removal in the stormwater drainage and what it is and what their evidence is as to how successful it is.
Okay.
And also, I guess, the extent to which it's actually available in the various drainages.
Okay. That is our goal, is to do that inventory to figure out what we have, what's working. The unique thing is in the Lacamas watershed, there's a requirement that all the facilities needed to have phosphorus removal cartridges installed, whereas the drainages contributing to Vancouver Lake that are a little older, that requirement didn't exist. So we expect that right now there are significantly more facilities that need the upgrades draining to Vancouver Lake than Lacamas. However, that doesn't mean that some of the facilities are reaching their end of useful life and lack commits and need to be replaced.
That's not really too appropriate when you come and take a look at the 23 entrance to the lake, and none of them have phosphate. There's only 2 of them that have phosphate cartridges, and they have some of the highest phosphate readings coming into the lake. So somewhere between what you just said and reality, there needs to be some come to Jesus stuff.
Are you speaking about Camus's facilities?
They are all within Camus, yes.
Okay, so that would be different. But Camus's facilities, I think at this time we're at the beginning on Clark County's inventorying process.
Okay.
So we would, but I do agree that having someone come in and talk about the efficacy, the technology, and I would love to hear your thoughts on or what information you would like us to come to you with on both the inventory as well as what we have in the county and how the technology performs. Justin may even be able to give that talk. Our resident stormwater expert. Do you have any comments you want to share?
None in particular. If I had the GIS in front of me, it'd probably be a different story. It'd probably be a chatterbox on it.
Should I go get my computer?
Give me maps and I can talk for days. Ask any client I've ever worked with.
That was a good question, and I will put that on my list for a follow-up presentation.
Thank you.
If you recall at our last meeting, we talked a lot about a stormwater rate study. We requested, and thank you for the letter. We really appreciate your support in the Clean Water Commission move to support us in writing a letter. We had to fight really hard to get budget for a stormwater rate study. I would say at this time, the future is still uncertain. We're still advocating. We are hearing a desire from our county manager for us to do a lot of the work in-house rather than to get professional services. So we've had 3 scoping meetings with the auditor's office and with the chief financial officer of the county, and we still have the potential ability to hire a consultant for some components of the study, but we're working right now on determining what is our long-term 20-year capital funding program need, which I'm working out with Jeff and Andrea and our group. And then we are working closely with our GIS department to figure out all of the back-end things that would need to happen to make sure that the fee can be calculated in time for the 2025 tax assessment. So I would say that we haven't won the fight yet. That it's still something that I'm focused on every day. And our goal is if everything, they want to see us hurry up and do it without a consultant. And so our goal is to hopefully have a rate increase by the end of 2024.
Without getting into 2 additional staff.
Without the 2 staff members or the consultants. And so I have a meeting next week with our CFO to continue to refine the statement of work. And there will be a decision before the beginning of the year on whether or not we'll be able to bring on professional services. But I am feeling very optimistic and continuing to make the case for our program needing more funding. And we're continuing to unveil the true capacity issues we have and starting to figure out how much failing infrastructure do we have or faulty infrastructure and where we think we have compliance risks. And so it's been really illuminating. And I don't know, it'll be I think some people will struggle with the information we're putting together. But Jeff told me, I got this number this week, that we estimate that the Clean Water Division's replacement value of all of our infrastructure is $219 million. So that is $219 million worth of infrastructure that we need to proactively maintain. Otherwise, it'll be a liability if it fails. So we're making some progress, and I will continue to request your advocacy and support. This will be a hot topic over the next year.
So Devin, was our letter shared with the county council members?
We didn't even get a work session approved.
So it's not been presented to the council at all?
They didn't even take the work session. So we are tentatively scheduled for January. We have not had a date yet. So
Does that mean?
Who did we send the letter to?
it didn't make it past initially even the county manager.
You mean it didn't even get out of Public Works?
I believe it was addressed to the council members, the council as a whole, if I recall.
All right.
With our work session request didn't even make it to council. So so that letter would be going to them in January. It's sitting, we have it, it's done, but unfortunately, our county manager didn't even recommend it to the council. So there's some internal politics and navigating that we have to still convince our CFO and our county manager why this is so important. We have already been approached to start thinking about decreasing our level of service, and I've been continuing to remind our leadership that that's impossible, because then we would have legal risks, and potentially, we're already just getting by. So,
You understand, though, part of our concern is that letters that this commission sends are not under the editorial control of the department. If we sent a letter to the commissioners should have received it. Isn't that true?
I would agree.
I have
It's
the
not up-
letters.
It's not up to the county manager whether or not a commission that the legislative authority of the county has created sends communications to the council. It's not an executive branch, i.e. county manager decision to circumvent what's been put into county code.
And, yeah, clearly this is one of the central issues that we wish to discuss when we discuss the code. But it certainly, if you care to pass along our verbal displeasure with this, that I don't think it's within the purview of the county public works director or the county manager to circumvent or to try to stop our correspondence.
And this is the core of the issue that we hit 6 months ago, 8 months ago, of control, and it will continue to raise its ugly head for the next season if it's not nipped in the bud now, and the answer is not provided.
So would normally that come from Matt? Or,
I'm assuming Matt signed the letter, right?
Matt signed it and I signed it, yeah.
so then the transmittal would be completed by, sorry, I'm still navigating, by us, as staff, on behalf of the commission.
I mean, we can certainly do the same. I mean, in the end, we ended up sending the email directly to council, and we can certainly send the letter that way too. My suspicion is that someone wanted it put on letterhead in whatever form you wanted, and then it disappears into the gray never, never.
We still have it, and the budget is there. The question isn't, can we raise the rates or not? I think there's support for that. I think where there's concern that we've heard is if we hire a consultant or not.
Right, and of course, by our charter, we believe that we are to provide advice to the county council. And our advice to the county council is they would be better served by an external source to do this, I think. And And that should have been communicated, I believe. At any rate, can't beat this to death, but register, I think, the commission's displeasure at this thing being circumvented somehow.
We're struggling ourselves. I hear you, and, I will take this and discuss this with, my boss as well as with our CFO when we meet on Tuesday, to talk about the scope of work. And, I've been trying to articulate the complexities, why we need a consultant, and there still has not been a determination made, but my goal is, well, we're on the hook to make a determination by January 3rd.
Goes past this issue.
Right.
It goes past this issue. It goes to the heart of who the conference, who the commission is, and what our role is in this whole business. And, essentially, we've been shuffled off the buffalo for the last couple of years because of COVID. And that has to stop.
I just took note that the commission has a concern about their letter and their recommendation not being taken seriously. They're making it to council, and that more clarification on who's responsible for transmitting letters on behalf of the commission, whether it's more appropriate to come directly from our chair and vice chair versus division staff. Division staff are in a challenging position. I would love if there was a streamlined opportunity, if that letter would have just came directly from, in an email from the commission.
Well, I think, I don't hear any opposition to you guys including it in your staff report, just to throw it out there. I mean, I think it's appropriate to include something like that in the staff report, regardless of whether it gets transmitted from us right away or, you know, whatever that process is. However that letter makes it to council in a timely manner, also attaching it to your staff report to discuss makes sense. So, throwing that out there. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, and if we need to, just to have our chair and vice chair send it from their Clean Water Commission email directly to the 5 members of the county council, that's easy to do and out of division staff's control, and therefore it doesn't fall on your head. So if that's what's necessary, I think that's feasible. In terms of, you said the word liability. You also talked about legal risk, which is kind of where I'm headed, which is got discussion of maybe cutting staff when the need is already getting away from the very hardworking staff that are there currently. So does the CFO and the county manager and the council aware of the legal liability and risk to the county? Because it doesn't take a lot for a group of citizens doing citizen science with a lawyer to file a citizen suit and say the county is not meeting the terms of its permit. And then you've got a whole larger and more expensive issue than just hiring a couple more staff to gradually get ahead on clean water issues that, again, and I'll say it again, that the council is creating with its zoning decisions. The reason the water pollution issues are getting worse, and particularly around toxics and fertilizers, runoff from roads, et cetera, the stuff the county is responsible for, is because of decisions being made by council. We want to do more roads, we want to do more cars, we want to do more development, and then we want to do what? Pretend like it's not our problem and we should save money by not dealing with the worsening problem that county decisions are making. That's absurd, and you know, they need to, I'm not saying you need to do this.
I agree with everything.
I'm just saying that the council and the higher-ups in the executive branch of the county need to understand they are making decisions that create water pollution. And if they're making other decisions that reduce the county's ability to deal with water pollution, Someone will sue the county.
I think it's that second point that's even more important, because, I mean, the development and zoning is still an issue, but those sort of developments still produce regulated facilities, and even though those do fall to the HOAs to actually pay for maintenance and everything, guess who has to go inspect it?
Somebody has to make sure they're
Right.
doing it, yeah.
Every one of those developments is one load on your inspectors.
Yeah.
So cutting people when there are more developments getting added, more of those facilities to be mapped and regulated.
Yeah.
Foolish.
I would love to share with you all some, it looks like you're gonna talk about.
Oh, go ahead.
We've been working on, we have a big spreadsheet, I don't think Alice has seen this yet, I've been working on it with our capital, and budget staff, where we're outlining what I've been calling all of our gaps, unmet needs, and compliance risks, and noting the permit requirement that it's associated with, and then projecting out the cost to help make the case for our rate target. And so we're working on that right now. My goal is that we'll be, we have a meeting on Friday actually to be done with our first draft, because some of it's estimating capital needs, some of it's estimating staff needs. And then my job as division manager is to take that, explain the gaps, explain the costs, fill those gaps, and the consequences if we don't. And then if I can present that information, then I guess hopefully that they will use that information to make sound policy decisions that are mitigate any sort of current risks that we have. And I think for our staff who have been here a long time, like Jeff Schnabel and Rod Swanson, I think they're excited about doing this and starting to explain the true cost of stormwater. And I am hoping, it's hard to explain to financial staff what it means to manage stormwater, and that's some of what we're up against, and explaining to them the complexities of the regulations and how much it really costs to implement.
If you give me one of them ties, I'll pull him right out into the boat and throw him right in that water and show him exactly what it's all about.
History,
Will too.
Clark County has a unfortunate history of having clean water lawsuits filed against it and losing those clean water suits over the last several decades. You know, this, what you're talking about, in a way would be a non-point source form of litigation of the Clean Water Act, which would be a little more challenging for a plaintiff to prove, but it doesn't mean that it can't be filed. And I think the legal realities of what a diminished stormwater program means for the county needs to be explained in liability terms. And if it's necessary to talk to the prosecuting attorney's office and get some information from them, maybe that's a direction too. But the last thing I want to do is see this commission create obstacles for you as staff to fulfill your duties and your obligations. So I think we need to tread carefully in how we respond, but at the same time, the county needs to recognize that there is liability out there. They need to act accordingly.
Have them go right around with Carrie for a day, see if they can keep up.
Today was a day, let me tell you, that we thought there's some stuff happening right now that I think is elevating a lot of, I won't go into it. I think there are some situations right now that are raising our PA and our council's awareness of stormwater challenges and how much they cost and what the implications are. And I'm hoping that we get our work session. I'm optimistic that we'll get a work session in January and that we'll have more complete information to make our case for increasing our rates and why it's in our best interest to bring on professional services to at least validate our work. If we're able to do some of these tasks in-house, if somebody who can at least audit it and do quality assurance and provide any feedback or recommendations if we're missing the mark.
We beat that one to death.
It's an important one, and it's really important because we're updating our stormwater manual this next year, and we're hiring a consultant to do that. And that's gonna drive all the development regulations. We're getting new permit requirements. We're anticipating those. And I would love for you guys to get a briefing on all the new permit requirements. I already mentioned some to Josh, because his role as a fire, in the fire district. We're gonna have to, work on inventorying all the firefighting foams and working with fire districts now in the county, and there's some other really unique permit elements. I have a memo I can share with you, or we can have Rod come in and give you a presentation. But other than that, we're continuing forward on education and outreach and maintaining our interlocal agreements. We're still doing lots of outreach. We're still doing all our water quality monitoring. We're doing a lot of reforestation. Our capital plan that you heard about last meeting was approved by the council. And right now, we're just really focused on, I think there's a spirit of hope and optimism in our group right now that we can move forward into a better funded, better supported future. And that's not because of me, but because of our council's interested. We have an engaged commission. And we're hoping that we can be successful while we're pursuing an increased rate in securing some additional grant funding. And then we're doing all of that with 18 staff. So I appreciate your continued support, because your capacity is helpful. And I hear your frustrations and concerns.
All right. Does that conclude your?
That does, and Eric's not here tonight. I can give you more detail on his education and outreach efforts, but it's also summarized in the division report if you prefer to just read it. It's your choice.
Are there any questions about the education and outreach portion of the report from the commission? All right. Moving on then, the staff liaison report. Alice.
Short and sweet, just like me. Just a couple things. The 2023-25 Pollution Prevention Assistance, PPA program contract was approved this summer, and we've filled our first quarter of that, and Eric was just actually approved, and he is now an inspector and can go out and do in-business inspections, and so he is taking some of the load from Bob Patterson, and I'm working on the environmental justice aspect of it. That's my unique element, and I did some training with one of the other unique elements is all of the Southwest Washington PPA specialists meet every other month, and that's a way for Bob to mentor and train, because he is one of the most experienced in the whole state, and he actually does a lot of the training statewide. And so we have developed a lot of regional, and so it's Cowlitz County and Clark County and all of the city inspectors, and so we've been working together to have a regional approach to working with businesses. And so been working on the having an environmental justice aspect presentation for training for each of those. This next one I'm going to be doing is actually getting into deep diving into some of the computer models and some of the things that they need to look at when they're targeting some of the areas, and how to use the maps and the things that are the systems that are available to them. If you were able to go to the Stormwater Partners Symposium, or were able to watch the presentation I sent out, the video of it, the keynote speaker from Department of Ecology actually had a really very informative speech about it, and he's been really helpful, and I've also got a couple other members who are also willing to help me with it. And I'm starting to work with the Department of Health here in Clark County to see how we can align our environmental justice plans. My plan is due to be written by June, so I've got 6 months to do that. And it kind of sounds easy, but it actually hasn't been done in the state. So this is kind of a test run with this at our level. So moving forward with that. And then we have made significant progress on updating the recruitment for the new commissioners, clean water commissioners. And it's really trying to be much more inclusive for the underrepresented populations and more representative of the entire county as a whole. We had just absolutely 8 incredible candidates, such talented individuals, and very passionate about water quality and watersheds. And, you know, every year I think it can't get harder. This is the hardest year, and this was truly a difficult decision. I mean, they were just phenomenal, and it was so difficult to do. But we did complete our interviews last week, and actually we were able to send on the recommendations to the county manager today. So we're hoping we'll have her decision by the end of the year, and hopefully be able to have the council's confirmation by early January, because I would like to have the new commissioner training in mid-January is what I'm shooting for right now. I was able to move my jury duty to February, because year end is coming up, and that is just absolutely super crazy busy times. So there's a lot to do. And then the annual report is coming up. And so just last meeting, Commissioner Trost and Martin Bem and Jones had said that they would be willing to start working on gathering that information and start drafting. So I would please ask everybody to send it to that work group and to myself, CC me in on it, just so I have the information, and then maybe you can start working on that. And ideally, since I was able to move my jury service, if I can get that by January 16th, middle of January, then that'll give me 2 weeks to work on it before your meeting in February. So if you're able to do most of the heavy lifting, then I can get that knocked out. So that would be my hope, and then we'll work from there. When it comes to the new commissioner training in January, one of my questions, because we've done it both ways. We've had it where it's been just new commissioners, and we've also had it where the entire commission as a whole came to the training, and we've also had it where it was new commissioners, and if you wanted to come, you could come. So how I structure it and how we do it, I'd like to know what is your preference and how you would like me to work on setting it up.
Well, my preference would be that it's new commissioners and existing commissioners if interested.
Okay.
And since I'm not going to be here in mid-January, I'm not going to get too involved, but it's good if at least one of the continuing commissioners takes part, I think, in the training, just from the perspective of having a sitting commissioner there as well, and sort of aiding the whole thing along. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to do that, but perhaps since I'm covering for Matt at this meeting, we could prevail on him to do that for that.
When all it is presentations, it's dry. And not all that much information passes. If you have a dialogue, if you have discussion, if you have commissioners there that have been there a while, that can fill in some of the holes, it takes the dryness out of it, and it gives some salve to the presentation, and it's a lot easier to accept.
Yes. One of the things that I have been working on whenever I get a chance, and it's starting to come together, I've taken to heart the suggestions of creating a visual, almost library of the various types of stormwater facilities and things like that. So I have been pulling that this fall and been working on that and starting assembling that. So that's also part of it, and I'll make sure that that gets sent out to everybody, because I know that that is part of the level. And then, coming from, having the inclusivity aspect of it, you never know. Some people may be, commissioners may be somebody like Justin, who does it for a living and knows backwards and forwards everything about it. Or it could be somebody, I remember when Matt came on, he was very passionate about it, but he didn't have that actual experience with and learning and knowledge of stormwater facilities and what actually it was about. But so, there's a broad range there. And Matt brings a lot of other skills that was something that, the commission was looking at, and also geographically and a lot of other things. So, it all just is one of those things where we try and have a broad representation there on the commission. So that's one of the things that I'm working on right now, Roger, because I know that was something that you were really interested and passionate in. And I'm taking parts of your slides and some of the things that you provided, and then I'm also working on some of the things that I have and that I've been able to find. So so I'm working on getting that so that we can have kind of a dictionary kind of thing set up. So so I've got new commissioners and potentially at least one, open it up. I'll just make sure that I also publish it in case there's more of you that want to attend. So let me know.
I'll speak from experience of being a new commissioner this year, and that was that having some of you at that initial meeting was extremely helpful, because I think you're right, Roger. There's a lot of information, and it can be pretty dry, and it helped to hear perspectives from the existing commissioners as a new commissioner. And I'd certainly be willing, Bob, to attend as well.
Fantastic.
So I think that's just helpful. And plus, you get to know these folks. I mean, after all, we're all going to be working together, and the sooner we get to know each other, the better. So
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so I'll just make sure when I do it, I publish it out as a regular meeting. It'll be a training and it'll be a non-business meeting, but I still have to put it out there because you'll have a quorum. And so I think that is all of my updates. Yes.
Refresh my memory, how many new commissioners are coming on board?
3. There's always, this year there's 3.
Only 3 replaced, and that's it?
Correct.
Okay.
Because none of the current ones decided not to reapply.
All right.
Our veterans decided not to reapply this time.
There's always next year.
That's right. You can always submit in case there was an opening, but even then, I'll tell you, it was the most, it truly was even more difficult than last year. And last year was hard. So, that's all I've got. I'm trying to remember if there were any other of the miscellaneous, but I can't remember from our meeting if there was anything else with that. But if there is, I'll send it out and let you know, in an email.
Do you have any comments on having participated? We can't say who they are because they're still the appointment, but any comments on the process and candidates?
No, well, so I say no, and then I immediately start saying what
I do that too. No, yeah.
So, yeah, the process was actually fairly similar to hiring a public service employee. I mean, we didn't go for second interviews, but I've been on interview panels in my agency in Oregon, and it was not that different. It was done, you know, as professionally as possible when I'm involved. Anyway, I have a lot of good candidates. At the end, you know, we had 3 openings, and I think 5 people that we really liked, and 4 where we're just sort of like, how do we pick which one of these 4 to not go forward? And one of the things we hoped was that the candidates that, there was a few candidates that we hoped that even though we're not putting their names forward, we're hoping they would stay involved because they have a lot of really useful life experience and technical expertise that can be very beneficial to the county. But yeah, it was a really, really impressive pool of applicants for the most part. So, those of you who are, still going to be here next year, should have 3 good colleagues.
Glad to hear it.
And Devin updated in her report the things that we did this year to update and expand the process, where instead of we didn't have a selection, we didn't do a pre-screening, we actually interviewed all of them. We had some bias training that we did so that we could look at ourselves and think about our own individual biases and be aware of that, because that's part of looking at it. And then we paid for a Facebook advertisements, which got a lot of traction, over 10,000 hits, 10,000 interactions with this announcement about that we were seeking diverse population of candidates. And it's kind of a two-edged sword in that there was a lot of really positive comments and there were a lot of really negative comments, which I was a little disheartened to see. But luckily, I know for sure we got at least one candidate mentioned that they applied directly because of that targeted Facebook ads. So that was really good to see and got the metrics on it. And I sent it out to a bunch of nonprofits and that are CCEDIG, which is the Clark County Employee Diversity, Inclusion, and Diversity Group, that they've identified as being active in the area. So sent that out to over 20 different agencies and asked them to please share with their employees, staff, clients, and volunteers to get that information out. And I know that has also been very successful in getting the word out as well. So And I believe also some people that you guys have had conversations with have applied. So, you know, that's also something that I think is really, really good, and it shows that we still continue to have that. The hard part's gonna be, you know, and Josh mentioned this, is how do we, engage the people who, we can't select, you know, and keep them involved and keep them, going forward. And so that's something I know Devin and I are looking at and trying to figure out a way to be able to, and keep them engaged and involved. So, that's something also to kind of be thinking about for, potentially when it comes to the discussions about, with the code changes and with this body and how things are done. So, looking at a lot of different ways with that, of how to keep public engagement moving forward, because there were some really amazing candidates last year that I had hoped to have reapply this year, but they did not. So, and that kind of, you know, it made me a little sad but moving forward too, but gosh, I don't even know what we would have done if we had had even more than the 8. So anyway.
Fantastic. Well,
Yep.
appreciate the hard work that the selection committee's done, and I certainly look forward to meeting the new commissioners. It's, we should be able to keep them busy, and hopefully they'll be willing to pitch in and help.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, the unfinished business and actions. The first item up is the bylaws work group. Sandra, do you want to handle that? She's still with us?
Yes, she's on.
If I could, this is Sandra, if I could have someone else, I unfortunately, I'm doing dual purpose tonight, given a family situation. So if you would be willing to handle that for me, I would appreciate it.
All right, well, I will briefly then address this by saying you have received the existing bylaws and the marked up section of what changes have been recommended in the bylaws and a clean version of the bylaws. And essentially, these are housekeeping details for the most part that were undertaken. Given that the code revision is hopefully forthcoming in the next calendar year, we didn't feel that market changes in the bylaws were warranted at this point in time, and that the operating conditions are basically stayed the same. We made some adjustments as far as some of the historic requirements and reporting requirements, and how we worded things on the work groups had been changed previously. But our bylaws do require that they be reviewed every couple of years and that we approve any revisions, and so that's this process. They're not extensive, but you've all seen copies of them. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the proposed new bylaws?
I just have one editorial thing, which is in section 6C, preparedness. Preparedness is italicized but not bold-faced. So
I caught that.
did you catch that?
Yes,
It's
I saw,
totally-
like, where did it go?
It's totally a typographical thing. It is not in any way, shape, or form content. Content-wise, I thought it was good.
Okay, and I passed along one very minor editorial comment as well to Alice, clean up. It's just a minor wording issue. Hearing nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the bylaws.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded? And seconded. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? All right. Approval of the bylaws is unanimous. The Clackamas Watershed Symposium Work Group Report. Roger, my boy, I think this one falls on your shoulders.
Yeah,
Give us a brief rundown.
a good time was had by all.
Did we succeed?
I think so. And I say that because, one, all of the positive comments that I have received from all Cougars. I think some groundwork was laid, and some ahas were had between people. There was a lot of decent interchange that went on, not just from a presenter to a group of people listening, but all day long, the conversations went on. And after it, I know the Lackawanna Watershed Council kind of received the watershed just got full of all the interaction that's gone on between Camas and the county even, and the college, everybody. I mean, and people are talking. And so if you take a look at the goals that we had for that, I think they were pretty much met. And the concept that was floated that this body sponsor a similar kind of process for like Vancouver next year, I think is an extremely positive thing to do. It's a lot of work. You got to catch all the alligators and bring them all and get them all to wag their tail in the same way and sit up and do their thing. But I'll tell you, it's professionally it's a valuable thing to do as well. To put all those people together, to get them all to work. We even took the poor old Clean Water Division and moved them from, we don't want to have anything to do with this, to, yeah, we'll be more than happy to do this. And with all of that kerfluffle that went on, and it still came out on top of it. So it was a highly positive process as far as I was concerned. And I know all the people that I know and know really well said, oh, wow, that was pretty neat. So, I don't know.
That was my take on it as well. It was clear by noon that we had sort of a meeting of the minds, and we had this thing going in the direction we had hoped for all along. And it was a tough fight that the commission went through to get this off the ground and put it forward, and I think it was a fight worth having.
Yep.
And I think the results have shown that to be true. I'll just note in passing, in a parking lot, and Ted will look for some guidance, I think, from you as we go down the road, whether or not something of this nature with regard to Vancouver Lake in our coming year would be one of the things that the commission should really devote time and attention to. And I don't want to have that debate now. The first meeting of next year is kind of penciled in as let's lay out where we want to go in the next 12 months for our commission. But it certainly would seem to me a very high possibility that this would be the one we tackle next, if indeed everyone sees merit to that.
You know, I think one of the valuable things I took away from that was just the interaction between the presentations and the time that there was just the ability to get out and network, that you could see, you know, state and federal, local people all talking about how can we coordinate our efforts for a common purpose. And that's, to me, that was a great result of that symposium.
Yep, very definitely. And that's continued to filter down as we move forward. And it's really been kind of cool.
Excellent.
From my perception was, it really caught the attention of at least a couple county councilors who attended. I think it really raised the profile and understanding of it, the complexity. This isn't something you can just wish away, and that, you know, there is a role for the county dealing with this. I think it did get that across, and I think it also gave a lot of people that might not normally have it some idea of all the different parties and agencies and efforts out there that it takes to, you know, improve water quality even a little bit. And I also thought it was a really great, way to advertise the Poop Smart program, since someone had the idea of putting little squishy poops at every table. That's it, Poop Smart. I don't know whose idea that was. It was a bold move I would not have undertaken myself. Okay, that explains it. Yeah, I think, you know, it's a really good, way to, like, for people, especially elected, especially decision makers, to see all the different pieces and all the different levels of government, that go into clean water, or at least trying to improve water quality.
That was the primary goal. And a lot of it came from a very early, 4 or 5 years ago. All of the government agencies met, and they didn't ask any of the nonprofits or groups that were working in the area to join them. They kind of kept a wall there. And this broke down that wall, I think, and they got to see, and we got to see what they did, and so that, I like the communication that went on.
Yeah, and it was a really, I hope there's a way to kind of package it, because it was a really, for other groups of citizen scientists and concerned citizens, because it was a really good example of the power of citizen science and persistence combined, to get real world empirical, you know, research results done. You know, I think it was really impressive to have, you know, all the ideas, the specific, you know, genii and species of cyanobacteria just there. And this was all done by people who cared and had some time and learned a little bit. And it really, you know, I think that's one of the keys to moving clean water forward, is not just they will take care of it, they being scientists and government employees, but you know, a more active citizenry approach to this. We will take care of it, citizens and government and scientists. That was a really good, I think, example that should become a textbook example of the effectiveness of citizen science with some training and some microscopes.
So I made the comment at the board meeting not too long ago. I said, we need to write up you know, because we've been in business now for about 3.5 years at the Watershed Council. We need to write up a report and get it published in Waltham. He said, Roger, please do that. You know how that goes.
Yeah. I do. Well, excellent. I mean, I think that it reflects well on the commission and on the Clean Water Division that it was as well received and as successful as it was. And I hope this, on behalf of the commission, is just the start of more productive efforts on the part of the commission, where we continue to move these kind of issues forward and try to make some inroads. As I've said several times, I kind of view the real purpose of the commission as sort of communication, coordination between all the various entities, and to work in the end towards improving, or at least maintaining the habitats that we have here in Clark County. So in that regard, I think it's been very positive. Anyone else have more to say about that? All right, now to one of the real issues, I think, certainly for Matt and I think for the council as a whole, is the work session with council about the code revision and clarifying sort of the roles and responsibilities compared to what the historical definitions have been. Where are we at?
I think, unfortunately, where we were at is that we're needing to get a work session request in for our rate study. which was our top priority. And so, based on that, I'm not optimistic that will be able to happen in January. In the memo that I put together, I identified, I would recommend that we submit the work session request and have the work session in March following the meeting, following the drafting of the annual report and the development of the work plan, which we intend to do in our February meeting. That way we have one more time to prep, or you all have one more time to prep together as a commission ahead of a work session. I know that's probably not satisfying to hear, but at this time, we're still waiting on, to hear back about our January work session request, which were initially anticipated to be December work session requests.
Is this something that the commission needs to take a different avenue to approach?
Well, we
County
wrote the
conflict.
commission or the council directly, and I guess I would say that we believed we were in the queue, I guess is the way to say it. And at this time, I'm willing to wait until our February meeting, I guess. I'm not going to advocate that we again send a letter directly to council complaining that we're not getting our due time, and that we take a more measured approach, I'll say. And with the intent that, I do believe it is the intent to get this done. And we'll work towards getting it done as soon as possible. I think that will help clarify a number of things.
Well, I think with 3 new members coming on, we'll have an opportunity to have a discussion at the February meeting about this council meeting and what it's all about, because they need to be brought up to speed about what our issues are, what the existing commission's issues are, and make sure that we have support for that approach. We can only accomplish that at the February meeting. So, to me, March is, makes sense, and that we'll have hopefully a more cohesive commission at that point, so.
Sounds good. The rest of the commission, any further comments on this, or are we comfortable? All right. Moving along. That's good. Now one that I think is well-deserved. 3 of the commissioners here with us this evening are not continuing on. I'm actually saddened to know that to be the case, but I understand. And obviously, on behalf of the commission, those of us that continue, you will be missed. Every one of you has been an important contributor to these meetings. What you've done, what you've put forward, your knowledge and experience have been invaluable. And we can't say enough about appreciating, and I know we all serve without any sort of compensation and out of a real commitment for the resource. And I know you'll continue to work and share that in the future. But I do think it important that each of you have the opportunity to leave with us some closing thoughts about the commission, about your roles in the commission, and what you see as the future for the commission. I would greatly appreciate that, and perhaps we could start with you, Justin, who's worn a lot of hats in this game.
I have. It's been interesting. Having been on the commission, been part of the division, and now being back on the commission, not going to say these last 3 meetings haven't flown by me, especially since the first meeting was right before the symposium, and I was sitting there just trying to take it all in and absorb what was going on in the year between leaving the division and then being back on the commission again. So it was pretty incredible to get up to speed on what you guys got accomplished in that, relatively speaking, short time. I hope that I've been able to offer at least some perspective in these last 3 meetings. having sat on both sides of all of these issues and everything, obviously, as far as the future is concerned, I'm hoping the commission can continue playing a part in getting the division the resources it needs. I know that was one of the big issues while I was, again, sitting on both sides of this table, being on the commission and then being part of the division and seeing all of the potential risks and future needs for the division to get everything accomplished, particularly with Clackamas and Vancouver Lake being such huge issues in these next few years. Hopefully now that there's traction, that gets to keep going. So, yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep attending meetings occasionally at least.
Well, you're welcome back anytime, Justin, for sure. Josh, you got anything to offer for us?
I really appreciate the opportunity to have served on that commission for exactly 2 full terms, which has become a little unusual. A lot of people leaving partway through, I guess. I think it's a really important commission. I think for me, I would like to see the commission keep going on the track it's going and being a little more pushy and a little more forthright and opinionated and directing that. When I started, we were on a very much just sort of absorbing information footing and doing an annual report and participating in outreach, in education events, and I think all those things are important, and kind of being a public face, I think is a good thing for commissioners to do. But I'd like to see the commission continue with the track it started in the last couple of years of doing, its own analysis and its own examination and starting to push the county more, and look at the linkages between clean water and other county departments and decisions, and be a little bit aggressive, because this is a good place for citizens who care about water in a general sense and about other species and about future generations to really push the county to think a little deeper than the next couple of years and the next couple dollars, and really take its responsibility to steward the resources for future generations. That's a serious obligation.
Great, Josh. Thank you. And Roger.
I don't want to go. I have enjoyed these 3 years immensely. I have. I can't say that I really enjoyed the COVID time that we had. That wasn't very much fun. But once we started meeting, I thought we rolled. And I agree with you that being active and making ourselves heard and being just a little bit pushy ain't that bad. It really isn't. Because I see, if I will, governmental resistance, and I know the time that it takes to go from A to Z. Steve Wall, Camas Public Works, said, Roger, cannot go as fast as you want us to go. Matter of fact, he said, slow down. We might not be there in 3 years. But we've all been pushing on him, and by Jiminy, he's there. And they're starting implementation of process on Clackamas Lake this coming season. So having a group of people advocate for positive change in the world, in our case, a clean water world, I think is really an important thing to do. I've been doing it for a long time, going all the way back to Spokane in the 80s. And it is the evidence of Washington residents doing it actively in this state is apparent, because we have some of the best water in the country, probably some of the best water in the world because of it. So, giving our time and energy to this, I think is extremely valuable. Extremely valuable and important to who we are. I'm going to show up. You guys have invited me to come and stick my nose in the door every now and then. And I'll probably end up bringing a few issues, because I looked at it the other day. I got 5 programs we're running on the Lacamas watershed right now, in everything from a plant inventory to Campus is actually buying us a probe, $6,000 probe to get profiles from the lake.
Nice.
So we're going to be going some places and really pulling some data in, and I'll bring it over to help you guys out too if you want. But I'm serious. Clean water is really important to us, and the time we spend doing this is extremely valuable. So we'll keep going, and I'll come back.
Well, we look forward to seeing you all again.
Yeah.
Roger will use his 3-minute per meeting.
Oh, God, yes.
That is one thing we were trying to figure out, because we're talking about public comment for 3 minutes versus wanting to keep people engaged. So I think even though we're approving bylaws, we may want to think about how we engage past commissioners, potential future commissioners, other active folks in a way beyond just the 3-minute public comment. So something for us to discuss at a future time.
Try this, because if I come back, I'm going to have a presentation for you. And with circles and arrows and images and all the rest of that sort of stuff. So if somebody comes back, they're not going to want to just sit here. They're going to want to take some of your time and probably have something halfway decent to share. So that might be a mechanism that you could use.
It's in line with what's been done in the past, so, I mean, Alice has arranged presentations from outside organizations.
And that's one of the things that we had done, was we had the spring and the fall special meetings set up for presentations. So, and that was where we were trying to have the bulk of the presentation, so you would have more time to have business items during the business meetings. And that was something that this year you decided that you wanted, so something to be thinking about for February, because I will be asking, is if you want to have those going forward, that would be something we can definitely set up and schedule. Because the last one was, the spring one was supposed to be, was the work, kind of a work session for developing the Lacamas Lake. And then the Lacamas Lake Symposium was your fall special meeting. So that's something to be thinking about if you're moving forward. You know, what do you want? How do you want it? Do you want to have every other meeting be a presentation where I have 1 or 2 or whatever? So think about what you want and what levels and how we want to be able to have your engagement and have the some of the information, like you've asked. You know, I've already gotten the request for, would like to have Jeff Schnabel come in and talk about the Vancouver Lake Management Plan and give that in 2024. Right now, that would be April, because I have a feeling that February is going to be pretty darn busy. unless you have a special meeting. And then also having, somebody come in and talk about the phosphate, stormwater, that science aspect of it is also another thing. So that's something that, for me, I really need. I know you always ask for these presentations in the meetings, hey, we want you to come in and talk, but then I also get, we don't want to have presentations. You're taking up all of our time with presentations. So I think that's something that I really need clear direction from this group on how and what levels that you want to have that moving forward, so that I can make sure that I am meeting the commission's needs. And so think about it and let me know. And I may be asking for that actually in January a little bit, because it takes time to get these things set up.
All right. Appreciate once again the time and effort you guys have put into this. And the last item under new business is the election of our officers for next year. Matt and I discussed this when we were talking about the agenda. Question was, do you have election of officers now or after the new commissioners are seated? The new commissioners don't know anything and haven't really gotten engaged in any of this. The feeling was that it made more sense to have the election of the officers for the coming year at this meeting. And to start this off, I would like to put the name of Matthew Jones in nomination for the chair.
I'm sorry. They get that dude that's not here.
Now, Matt has already indicated that he would be willing to accept the role should he be elected. And of course, if someone else has a strong desire to play in this game and would prefer to be the chair next year, he would certainly be more than happy to see someone else step forward. So that having been said, Matt has agreed that he would be willing to do this, and I place his name in nomination. Are there any others?
I would second the nomination for Matt to continue as chair.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any further nominations or discussions from the commissioners?
By absentee
Hearing none, we are, this does require a vote of the commission. All those in favor of Matt Jones as commissioner, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, Matt is the unanimously elected chair of the commission for next year.
Congratulations to Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice chair.
Who else is
Be my guest.
Who
Do
else,
it.
who else is absent from this meeting?
Sandra, Kate.
No one else is really interested, and if you are interested, I think you've done a splendid job as vice chair, so I would suggest, with your permission, I could enter your name into nomination.
And I second it.
All right, and I have the same approach as Matt. If someone else has a burning desire to step into this role, please let it be known. But I am willing to do this for another year.
Thought we just put all the absentee names on a dartboard.
You know, for a second, I considered nominating Kate, just because she's the other commissioner who is not present.
Well, you could.
But I decided I should be serious and not make it a lark, so.
All right. Hearing no further nominations, call the question. How many in favor of myself as commissioner?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimously elected again. And with that, I believe that concludes our business for this evening. All of 15 minutes early. Are there any last comments, questions, or suggestions? We're adjourned. I've been waiting all night to do that.
Okay, well, let me finish for kicking off the.